Okay, so today we're going to start lesson 1.2 in our Algebra 2 book. So once again, you should know the drill by now. We have a problem of the day. It's an error analysis problem. Describe and correct the error in the conversion, and I have two of them. So obviously both answers are wrong. Pause the video and take a look at what you need to do to make it better before we begin the lesson. Now the second lesson, 1.2, is called Evaluate and Simplify Algebraic Expressions. The first thing we have to start with is a definition here, and it's called numerical expression. It consists of numbers, operations, and grouping symbols. What I mean by that is no equal sign. All right, so you'll see ones you said on the pretest, and you'll see it in the lesson. I'll ask you to evaluate an expression. You're not solving for the variable, you're just coming up with one single answer. Now, another thing we're going to take a look at the bottom is our exponent rules. If I have 7 cubed, which is here, the base is the number 7. The exponent is what it's raised to, which in this case the exponent would be 3 or the cube. The power, though, be careful, is the whole thing itself. And 7 cubed, remember, it's not 7 times 3, like 7 times 3, which is 21. It's 7 3 times. 7 times 7 times 7. All right, so we're going to get to example 1. I ask you to evaluate, and I could even say evaluate the expression if I wanted to. All right, and you'll notice that A and B are very, very similar, except A has no parenthesis and B does. I want you to take a second to solve these yourself before I do, and also think about Q1 down here. All right. All right, so if we take a look here, A is negative 13 squared. And how you would rewrite this before we get an answer is you would do negative, with a space there, 13 times 13. So the difference here is the negative is out front by itself, it's separate. So this answer is negative 169. Now you might be saying, well, what's the difference between A and B? B obviously has the parentheses. We're going to do equals parenthesis negative 13 times parenthesis negative 13. So in this case what you have is you have two negatives, negative times negative, which makes it a positive 169. It's a very small difference between them. Now, you'll notice that with the square, it is very important. A lot of times I'll get people who solve a problem and they want to jump right to a calculator, they solve, they don't realize there's a difference. So there's a reason why I actually brought this problem up. Now what I want you to think about that we'll talk about in class, all right, it says Q1. Let's see if I can move this over so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. For what values of the exponent n will the expressions quantity negative a to the n and negative a to the n be equal? Do you see how in a and b they are not equal? Think about what kind of exponents would give me that, what n would have to be, and we'll talk about it in class. Make sure you pause to answer the question. All right, so we have two more definitions on this next page. First one's variable. Variable is a letter that is used to represent one or more numbers. All right, we've been dealing with variables for a while now. And the second term is algebraic expression, an expression involving variables. All right, so if we take a look down here, example 2, we're asked to evaluate. Now it's an expression, because once again, what did we say on the first slide? You don't have an equal sign here. All right, so now what I'm going to have us do is we're going to evaluate, m's the variable, 3m squared plus 5m minus 12 is the algebraic expression. We're going to plug in, every time we see the variable m, we're going to plug in a negative 4. Okay, so like I said, when we solve this, we will plug in negative 4 for m for each time. All right, so I'm going to type that below. And so I'm going to have 3 parenthesis, negative 4 close parenthesis. And then I'm going to square that, plus 5 parenthesis negative 4 minus 12. Now I know at this point you probably don't need to show a lot of steps. I'm going to show a couple at least. First, square the negative 4, where negative 4 times negative 4 is a positive 16. And I'll evaluate the next line. 5 times negative 4 is negative 20 minus 12. So I ask you to show some work. You don't have to show a lot of work. Fix that. But show at least 1 or 2 steps. 3 times 16 is 48 minus 20 minus 12. And I get 48 minus 20 is 28 minus 12, which is 16 is my final answer. So we get the answer of 16. So this should be fairly easy. Just got to worry about order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. All right. Now the next example, it's actually a word problem, and that's important in math to be able to take a look at a problem and make sense of it, how to solve it. So we're going to take a look at setting up an expression and then solving another problem. All right, so example 3. You're selling homemade candles at a craft fair for actually $3 each. Sorry about that. My number got cut off. There we go. So let's fix that. All right, so let me start again. You're selling homemade candles at a craft fair for $3 each. You spend $120 at a booth and buy materials for the candles. So the first part is write an expression that shows your profit from selling C candles. All right, so I want you to think, pause the video if you need to, and I want you to come up with an expression. So what numbers do we have? Let's talk about this for a second. We have to use the number 3. If it helps, sometimes it's nice to underline what numbers you have, because that means you'll have to use them for an expression. All right? And think about it for a second. Pause if you need to. All right, so let's come up with the expression. If they're $3 each and you spend $120 initially, you're in the hole for $120. You have to always subtract that $120 at the end. Candle costs $3. So our expression is going to be 3C, $3 times the number of candles, minus 120, because 120 is what you spent up front. It's from your profit. So here's our expression. That's the first answer. Now we say, find your profit if you sell 75 candles. Well, we take this equation here, and 75 is going to be my C. So we'll do 3 times 75 minus 120. 3 times 75 is 225 minus 120. And I get, I'm going to write it, get 105. And since it is a word problem, let's come up with a sentence. My profit will be $105. So what I'm going to ask you to do is when you have a word problem, be sure to write a sentence as your final answer. So my profit will be $105. It doesn't have to be a long sentence, at least just something. Okay, so let's move on. Terms and coefficients, we're going to take a look at next. Terms, first definition here, the parts in an expression that are added together that can be written as a sum. Let's just make sure, move that over a little bit. Just seems when I saved it to come out nice. So I have everything labeled here. The 3 and the 5 are coefficients. They are numbers in the front. Then the variable terms are the variables like x. So x squared, x, if you had x cubed, whatnot, y cubed, z cubed, whatever, z to the 10th, they're your variable terms. Constant is the number without a variable. So -7 would be my constant term. Like terms, terms that have the same variable parts, combine like terms by adding coefficients. So what does that mean as an example? All right, example 4, simplify the expression. Let's move this out of the way for a minute. Have 4 problems in example 4. And we'll start solving them now. All right, so let's look at A. In order to add or subtract like terms, you have to have the same variable and exponent. This is n to the first power, right? And so is this one. They both have n to the first. They're the same letter, the same exponent. So I am allowed just to take the coefficients. So the coefficients are the numbers in front. 12 minus 7 is 5. And tack on the n. So we answered A, simply 5n. Now let's look at B. The only ones that are like terms, so you can only add or subtract like terms. So let me underline our like terms. R cubed, negative 9r cubed. All right. So sometimes you can't combine them all. And I like to go in decrease in order. So I'll start with the cube. 8 minus 9 is negative 1r cubed. All right. Technically, you don't need the 1, but I'm going to leave it there for now. And then nothing matches up with the r squared, so we just rewrite it plus 6r squared. That's my answer. If you don't like the negative 1, you could just also do negative r. Hold on 1 second. Got to change this again. Negative r cubed plus 6r. I would accept either answer. All right. Now, in this next one here, we have an extra step. Let's distribute the 9 to both parts. And be careful with the negative 6. See if I could circle that. That doesn't look too good, but you distribute the negative 6. Make sure the negative with it. You saw some problems like that on the pre-test, right? Don't forget the negative. So let's simplify this first. All right. So I should get 9t minus 36 minus 6t minus 42. So we're going to start off by distributing the numbers. Make sure this second term is a negative 42, not a positive. And we will combine like terms from there. 9t minus 6t is 3t. All right, so you would just combine them. And then we take negative 36 minus 42, which is negative 78. And that's my answer. Okay? So, the last one, you could also obviously see them. Maybe you don't have see a variable with the same variable with different exponents, like A, we had n in the first, or we had all r's and B, different exponents. And here we just had all t's. Sometimes you'll see them where there's different letters instead of exponents. So once again, combine like terms. 5a minus 20a is negative 15a. Negative 8 plus 14b is plus 6b. That was pretty easy. That's my answer. All right, so we're off to the last slide. Here's your homework. Number 1, problem of the day and explanation. You could fill it in the notes as you go or in the back. 2, answer Q1. And then 3, evaluate the expressions below. Actually, a lot of them say that. Here we're just dealing with exponents in 3. 4, we're plugging in a number. 5, I'm asking you to change it with the candles. 6, I'm asking you to identify and simplify. And 7, simplify. All right? So make sure you solve these. Will be your homework tonight for tomorrow. And that's the end of lesson 1.2.